Hey everyone, welcome back to Kubrick Corner with me, Sean Wilson. So, I'm aware on this channel that I don't do a lot of reviews of foreign language cinema. This is a failing of mine. I go and see as many foreign language films as I can within like sort of distribution means. I noticed that my recent review for Roma actually has got some very nice engagement. Thanks to everyone who watched that, and of course that's now in contention for the Oscars. On that latter point, it calls to mind those great foreign language movies that don't often get put forward for Oscars attention. I want to call attention to a South Korean movie called Burning from director Lee Chang-dong, who made a movie several years ago called Poetry, which I really like. This completely different kettle of fish, adapted from a very slim six-page short story by Haruki Murakami called Barn Burning. And I actually saw this movie a couple of weeks ago, and I'm only just getting around to talking about it now because it's one of those movies I've really had to process, and the more I've thought about it, the more it's really got under my skin, and the more I really do admire it. And what it shows is what an exciting age we're living in for international cinema at the moment, particularly from South Korea. There are some extraordinary movies coming out of South Korea. Think of Bong Joon-ho with the likes of Okja, for example, Park Chan-wook as well. I think South Korea is one of those exciting and brilliant markets for movies at the moment, and Burning certainly considers that. How best to describe the plot of Burning? This is very hard, and I'm going to, for those who have heard about this movie and who maybe have not yet stepped up to go and see it, I will try my best just to outline the basic plot parameters without going too much into spoilers. Although, to be honest, the movie is so peculiar and so bizarre that it would actually be quite hard for me to spoil it. The basic gist of it is, at the start of the movie, a young man who appears to be kind of introverted and a bit of a loner bumps into a girl who claims that she is an old acquaintance of his. She then promptly seduces him, takes him back to her flat where she says she has a cat, although the cat isn't actually visible anywhere. She then says that she is going to Africa to do some kind of missionary work, and would he mind looking after her cat while she's away? He agrees to do so because he ends up being completely smitten with her. During this time, we still don't see the cat. We assume the cat exists because the food is being eaten out of the bowl when he goes over to the flat to feed it. She then comes back from Africa with this kind of obsequious, vaguely creepy new guy who is completely new on the scene, and our central character feels completely out of the loop. And what started as a kind of weird, almost quasi-romance movie almost then turns into something approaching The Talented Mr. Ripley, in which you get this triangular study of jealousy and identity in terms of these three characters, all of whom appear to be trying to suss each other out, or at least our main character appears to be sussing out what the intentions of the other two are. This girl that he has completely fallen for, and this apparent new bloke that she is seemingly shacked up with, brilliantly played by Steve Yeun from The Walking Dead, who is absolutely brilliant in this. He is so creepy and unsettling. He's got a real shark smile. He's smiley and apparently friendly, and yet it's a very duplicitous, it's almost unfriendly kind of smile that he adopts. And what the movie then veers off in a number of different directions, but Steve Yeun's character then reveals at one point in a sort of marijuana induced haze that his hobby was going around burning greenhouses. Apparently in the Haruki Murakami story it was barns, hence the title. In the film it's been changed to greenhouses. And this kind of very peculiar revelation appears to unlock some kind of strange, weird impulse in our main character, just as he's trying to figure out who he is and what his relationship to these other two characters are. And as he's grappling with his own feelings of resentment and isolation and jealousy, this apparent revelation from this guy who he can't work out is an ally or an enemy suddenly seems to spark something off in him. And that is as far as I'm going to go as far as the plot is concerned, because the movie it sort of envelops you in this incredibly peculiar and very menacing atmosphere. It's beautifully shot. There are lots of sort of shots that are held for a very inordinately long time, almost at a glacial pace, so that you're almost kind of invited to pick bits and pieces of detail out of the mise en scène. You're trying to be. It's almost like you're being challenged to try and find clues as to what's actually going on within the scene. Of course, the great thing about the movie is, as those who've seen it will already know, is that really it's completely up to you in terms of what you make of it. I mean, for my money, I think it starts off with the threat appearing to come from one direction, and then quite imperceptibly and quite brilliantly the source of the threat then morphs into something else. And the way that the movie creeps up on you and sort of springs that on you, well, this is my interpretation of it, I should stress, I thought was really quite brilliant. I think Lee Chang-dong does an absolutely fantastic job of keeping the audience off balance with this very, very sort of weirdly kind of calm and yet also distant visual palette. There's also a very creepy, repetitive score going around in the background that's constantly trying to wrong foot you. And I think clearly this is an expansion of a story. And I think that, you know, in as much as it's based on a Murakami story, this is clearly a Lee Chang-dong's own invention. It's kind of a sort of noirish tale. At times it reminded me of the Rian Johnson movie Brick, and yet it also, at some point, our central femme fatale character, or is she, sort of strips off half naked and then starts to sort of dance around in this sort of slow motion daze, which almost appears to be kind of like David Lynch style at some point. It's really quite a brilliantly creepy and very, very odd movie. And I have to say, when I got to the end of it, having watched it, I kind of thought, well, that's a frustrating experience because it's a long movie. It's 2.5 hours. And with that glacial sense of pace, you do kind of feel it at times. But then after I let it settle down, and believe me, 2 weeks later, it has settled down now, I kind of thought, wow, that's actually kind of brilliant for a movie that is genuinely unpredictable and genuinely strange, where I genuinely did not know where it was going. And for it to completely catch me out like that, I mean, not a lot of movies can do that nowadays. I mean, again, this is why I point to South Korean cinema being particularly exciting. You've got a lot of Hollywood cinema and well, cinema from Western society in general is often so kind of boxed in and confined by narrative archetypes and narrative predictability. This, by contrast, Burning, as with so many other South Korean movies, feels so completely liberated and so completely inured to its own strangeness that it actually becomes a very, very strong recommendation. So I would recommend those who want to go and see it to go and see it. I don't know how much longer it's going to be out for. Again, I've had to wait a while to do this review to really let it settle in my head. It's called Burning. If you do get to see it, now, even if you don't necessarily see it in the cinema, or if you see it on streaming or on DVD or whatever, drop me a comment here at Kubrick Corner because I'd love to know your thoughts on it. And I'll see you soon. Bye.